Have you ever thought about what it is about tabletop RPGs that draws us in? Like, what is it about gathering around a table with friends, rolling some dice, and weaving a story together that still has this power to completely captivate us, even in this age of hyperconnectivity?
I think about that a lot, actually. And, just the other night, our group had one of those moments that really, I guess, captures that essence perfectly.
Wow, I'd love to hear about it.
So, our gnome illusionist, we were facing down this, particularly grumpy ogre.
Classic.
Yeah. And instead of, just going for a direct attack or anything, he decides to use his illusion magic to create a swarm of, well, angry bees.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. And the best part, the ogre, he was not exactly a scholar of logic, let's just say.
Not the brightest bulb.
Completely bought it, started swatting wildly at the air, gave the rest of the party the opening they needed to take him down.
Oh, I can just imagine the scene.
The whole thing was just, I don't know, the sheer ridiculousness of this huge brute being absolutely terrified by imaginary bees. We all just lost it, Just completely erupted in laughter. And that right there is, I think, a big part of why these games are so special.
Absolutely. That blend of just totally unexpected creativity, those moments of shared laughter, that's pure gold. And it's really that kind of deeply personal and communal aspect of tabletop RPGs, especially D&D, that we're going to dive into today.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, we're gonna take a bit of a trip back in time and we explore the world of Dungeons and Dragons before the internet became so integral to, well, how most of us connect with our hobbies now.
Sounds like a fun journey.
I think so. And our guide for this little expedition is a really great article by Paul Bello, Before the Internet Made D&D Cool: How a Niche Game United Weird Kids, like me, over on LitRPG Reads.
Great article.
So our mission, if you will, is to kind of paint a picture of what playing D&D was like in those pre-internet days. What unique challenges did players face? What distinct joys did they experience? And how did that era, that particular time, how did it shake the sense of community that maybe feels a bit different from how we connect through online spaces today?
I'm curious to see where this goes.
Me too. And for those of you listening who were there, who experienced those days firsthand, we hope this sparks some fun memories, some recognition. And for those who discover D&D later, maybe this will offer a little glimpse into the roots of this hobby that so many of us still cherish.
Definitely.
So the article jumps right in, right? It starts with this section titled, When D&D Wasn't Cool, But We Were. And it paints a pretty different picture from how D&D is often perceived today, with its almost like retro coolness factor.
Yeah, it's funny how things change.
It really is.
Yeah.
Back then, D&D wasn't mainstream at all, right? It was definitely a fringe hobby. And the article, it points out that, simply admitting you played D&D, that could earn you some seriously bewildered stares from folks.
Oh, I can only imagine. Or worse, right?
Oh, yeah, or worse, right? Maybe even those wild accusations of, devil worship or something.
Oh, absolutely.
It's kind of crazy to think about now. But what's really fascinating is how that shared experience, that experience of being part of something that was so outside the mainstream, how it actually created this really strong sense of identity among those early D&D players.
It's like this sort of shared secret language,
Yeah.
Not just knowing the rules, but understanding what it meant to love this thing that wasn't widely accepted.
It's almost like a secret society in a way, right?
Totally. And the article makes a great point about how those quirky elements, the things that maybe outsiders might have seen as strange, those actually became, I guess, a point of pride. Like, it wasn't a source of embarrassment. It was a badge of honor. Like, yeah, we're into this thing that you don't get.
Exactly. And the article, it also makes a really important point about inclusivity in those early days. It states that everyone was welcome, regardless of one's place in the social hierarchy.
That's powerful.
It really is. I mean, imagine this, right? Before the internet, before online communities, before all that, D&D was this meeting point, this space where people who might have felt marginalized elsewhere could come together, find common ground, and experience these collective victories within the game world.
And there's that irony, right? That D&D, this thing that was considered uncool by so many, actually ended up fostering this really genuine sense of coolness, and it was all through acceptance and understanding.
It makes you wonder, right? Like, if that forced reliance on the group without, the external validation or comparison you might find online, if that actually amplified acceptance of individual differences.
It's possible, right? Like, being a D&D player was already other, so internal judgment within the group, it didn't really matter as much as the shared act of creation.
It makes you think, right? So moving on, the article then goes into the challenges of finding your party in the wild.
A different beast altogether back then.
Oh, totally. I
Yeah.
mean, it's almost hard to imagine now, right?
Mm.
With all these online platforms and tools for finding groups.
Yeah.
But back then, locating fellow players, the article describes it as feeling like finding a rare treasure chest.
Talk about dedication.
Right. And it wasn't as simple as posting in a forum or something.
Yeah.
So what did players do?
They got creative. The article mentions all these, I guess, analog methods, right? Hand-drawn flyers being put up at rec centers, connections through peculiar cousins, as the article puts it.
Love that.
Or even, and this is my favorite, strategically infiltrating the local chess club, pretending to be interested in another quote-unquote board game, just to see if anyone there might also be secretly into D&D.
Like a D&D spy mission. That's brilliant.
It really shows the lengths people would go to, the dedication, just to find like-minded individuals.
And the article, it highlights how simply owning the core rule books or having like a well-stocked dice bag, those could be like golden tickets to camaraderie.
Oh, yeah, those were the signs, It wasn't about an online profile or anything. It was about those physical artifacts. Those were like the signal. Hey, I'm into this too.
Totally. And that first time you heard roll for initiative in a group setting, the article describes it as this almost transcendent experience. It really captures just how deeply meaningful it was to finally find your people, your gaming group.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Like, did that difficulty, that process of seeking out players, did that lead to, I don't know, stronger bonds, more resilient connections compared to the, maybe more easily formed and easily dissolved online interactions we often see today?
It's an interesting question, right? Like maybe the effort involved in finding your group made you appreciate the shared experience even more.
Makes sense.
So, moving on, the article paints this beautiful picture of the pilgrimage to the hobby shop. It elevates this seemingly ordinary trip into like a sacred rite for those young adventurers, even if it was just a bike ride across town. It's like those hobby shops, they weren't just stores, right? They were these vital hubs, these centers of the D&D universe.
Totally. And the article, it does this amazing job of evoking the senses, like you can almost smell that mix of new books and that distinct aroma of like model train supplies.
Yeah.
And those like glistening trinkets of gaming paraphernalia, dice sets, miniatures, all just calling out to you. Those shops, they were like portals to another world, like physically stepping into the imaginative landscapes we were exploring in our games.
And then there's that mention of the all-knowing gaze of the model train guys.
Oh, yeah.
It adds this whole other layer of like quirky authenticity to the whole experience.
Classic hobby shop scene.
Totally. And the highlights from Hobby Shop Adventures, the article lists are just fantastic. Like the silent judgment from the model train enthusiasts, the countless hours spent poring over Dragon magazine at the counter, the like super passionate debates about which miniature perfectly embodied your character, the arguments about FAQ, even before you fully grasped what it meant.
FAQ 0. Good times.
Oh, for sure. And then, of course, that feeling of like stumbling upon a brand new module that no one's seen yet or finding that perfectly weighted die. I mean, those were formative experiences for so many players back then.
Absolutely. Thinking about it, those trips to the hobby shop, they were more than just like shopping trips. They were a chance to immerse yourself in the culture of the game, to learn through observation, conversation, even just browsing the shelves or getting into a rules debate. It was all part of this social ritual.
It's true. And the article, it ends this section with this great image of like the post-shop ritual at Dairy Queen. You and your friends, ice cream in hand, just poring over your newly acquired treasures and excitedly planning out your next adventure.
I love that detail.
It shows that the camaraderie, it wasn't just at the gaming table, it extended to every part of the hobby.
It really highlights the importance of shared physical space, not just like quick online interactions, but actual face-to-face moments that built relationships that a lot of times went way beyond the game itself.
So true. Okay, so from the hobby shop, we journey into basement epics and sleepover campaigns. The article, it perfectly captures that transformation, right?
Right.
Ordinary basements becoming these extraordinary layers, dimly lit with like strings of Christmas lights or the glow of a lava lamp. And sleepovers, they weren't just about staying up late talking anymore. They became these highly anticipated chances to have these epic, immersive D&D sessions that would stretch for hours.
Yeah, oh yeah. And what always gets me is how makeshift everything was. You know, cardboard boxes becoming DM screens, soda cans suddenly transformed into potions, pizza boxes. There were the dungeon maps and popcorn bowls. Well, those were the dice
That
arenas.
is so charming, right?
It really is. It wasn't about having the most professional or polished setup at all. It was all about the power of shared imagination.
Yeah.
And in a way, I think those limitations, they actually sparked even more creativity.
I agree. And the article, it has this section, Memories of Sleepover D&D Sessions. And it's full of these relatable, almost nostalgic anecdotes. You know, the inevitable late-night arguments about character alignment, someone dozing off mid-combat during initiative, someone spills their soda, boom, instant environmental hazard in the game world, a beloved plushie becoming a fearsome monster.
Oh, and let's not forget the discovery of those long-lost dice, right?
Ah.
Unearthed from the depths of the couch cushions.
Essential part of any sleepover campaign. And then, of course, just that pure, unapologetic laughter over the lamest puns. It really paints this wonderful picture of those early D&D sessions, how personal and often chaotic they were.
It was all about the story, you
Yeah.
know, and without, immediate access to rule clarifications online or pre-made adventures, there's a lot more improvisation, more collaboration in the moment. It was all about that shared story being created right there at the table.
Absolutely. And this leads us to a really crucial point that the article brings up, the inclusive magic of a niche hobby. It reiterates this idea of inherent inclusivity, where, as the article puts it, everyone could be a hero, no gatekeeping allowed. It was about how players found genuine connection and formed these really strong bonds, regardless of their background or social standing in the outside world.
It's like D&D, it offered this kind of sanctuary,
Yeah.
for those players who maybe felt like outsiders or misfits in other parts of their lives, the gaming table, it was a place where they were not only accepted, but genuinely valued for their creativity and their participation in the story.
And the article, it points out how, the lack of stringent online gatekeeping, like we see sometimes today, that meant if you showed up with enthusiasm and a willingness to play, you were in.
Exactly. And without the ability to instantly look up rules online, rules lawyering, it was a lot less prevalent, a lot less disruptive.
So true. So the article highlights some of the key elements of that inclusivity, right? Rules debates tend to be more collaborative, acceptance of everyone's individuality, even the DM's non-gamer family members sometimes joining in without anyone batting an eye.
It was all about embracing those unique character concepts,
Okay.
prioritizing that collaborative storytelling and role-playing over rigidly sticking to every single rule.
And the DM screen, the article suggests, it almost became a symbol of that freedom to be yourself within the game world.
I like that. It's a powerful image. And it all ties back to what we were discussing earlier, right? That shared experience of being uncool in the broader social context that ironically created this deep sense of acceptance within the D&D community.
Right. Everyone at the table was in some way an outsider, and that created this really strong bond of understanding and respect.
Yeah.
So moving on, the article then briefly touches on when the internet came to town, and it acknowledges the huge impact, right? I mean, the internet, it transformed the D&D landscape.
No doubt about it.
It connected players across vast distances. It made all these resources available, but it also introduced a whole new set of challenges.
For sure. It was a turning point, right? The internet, it democratized access to D&D, but it also brought about these new dynamics, the potential for online negativity, a shift away from those solely face-to-face interactions.
And the article, it wraps up with this section, remembering what made it special. It really reflects on those unique qualities of the pre-internet D&D experience, the focus on genuine human connection, the importance of face-to-face interactions, and the magic of collaborative storytelling that was, for the most part, free from the pressures and distractions of the online world.
The article talks about the pure aspects of those early games. No phones at the table, hand-drawn maps filled with inside jokes, the genuine laughter at terrible puns, the joy of creating something together, and friendships built on shared, tangible experiences rather than, online fame or follower counts.
There's something to be said for that presence, right? Like, in those pre-internet games, the focus was really on the people right there in the room with you and the story you were building together. Fewer distractions, much more emphasis on direct interaction. It really sounds like a fundamentally different experience in many ways.
Absolutely. I mean, the challenges were certainly different back then. Finding other players, getting your hands on the game materials, it could be a real quest in itself.
But the rewards were rooted in those face-to-face connections, that shared creation, that sense of community.
Totally. And when you think about it, those lessons about community building, they apply to more than just D&D, right? It suggests that shared vulnerability, that feeling of being in it together, even if that it is something niche, it can be such a powerful way to forge those lasting bonds.
Absolutely. And the article, it ends with this really thought-provoking question, something for all of us to consider. Has the internet altered something you hold dear? It's a great question. It really encourages us to think about the trade-offs that come with increased digital connectivity, to reflect on those simpler, more direct forms of connection in our own lives.
It's definitely worth taking a moment to appreciate the roots of these communities, how they've evolved, and to understand both the benefits and the potential downsides of those changes.
Couldn't agree more. And on that note, a big shout out to LitRPG Reads and to Paul Bello, a fine fellow, for sharing such insightful and nostalgic reflections on those early days of our favorite game.
Really appreciate those personal stories. They give us such a unique perspective.
So as always, we would love to hear from you. Share your thoughts, your experiences, your own memories of those pre-internet days of D&D. Let us know in the comments below.